Have you ever noticed something unusual? The people who achieve the most rarely talk about motivation. They don't post inspirational quotes. They don't wait for Monday to begin. They don't rely on the perfect morning routine or a curated playlist. Instead, they do what needs to be done, day after day, without excuses, without negotiation, and without drama. While most people are still lying in bed, scrolling through their phones, waiting to feel ready, these individuals have already completed their most important tasks. While others watch motivational videos to hype themselves up, they have already trained, studied, created, and executed. And here's the most interesting part. When you ask them how they manage it, they rarely mention feelings. They don't speak about inspiration. Instead, they refer to something far older and far more powerful. In 10th century Japan, during the Heian period, there was a concept that distinguished ordinary men from legends. It wasn't about physical strength, though many who practiced it were formidable warriors. It wasn't about intelligence, though the wisest scholars acknowledged its value. This principle was called Yamato Damashii, the spirit that moves the body even when every fiber of your being wants to stop. It forged warriors who could not be defeated and generals who altered the course of history. Centuries later, during World War II, this concept was misused and twisted into something dark: militaristic propaganda and extreme nationalism. The Japanese government corrupted its meaning, using it to justify atrocities. But the original essence of Yamato Damashii had nothing to do with war, empire, or national superiority. It was centered on one devastatingly simple truth: duty over sentiment, identity over emotion, being over doing. Today, I'm going to explain what this ancient principle truly means, and how it can transform you from someone who knows a lot but accomplishes little into someone who consistently gets things done. Little into someone who can't help but take action. But first, let me share the story of a man who had all the knowledge in the world, and yet no courage to use it. Before we dive in, it's important to make a key distinction. There are two types of motivation. The first is what we might call excitement, that temporary rush you feel after watching an inspiring video or reading a powerful quote. Feels uplifting, but it fades quickly, like morning dew. The second type is what the Japanese call ikigai, your reason for being, your purpose for action. In this video, we'll explore why the first type, excitement, often sabotages your progress, and why you need something far deeper to truly drive you. Before we continue, I want to invite you to subscribe to Presence and Purpose. We're building a community for people tired of empty motivation and ready for real transformation. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and drop a comment below. Tell us, what is the one action you keep putting off? What goal have you planned for years but never executed? Share honestly, and while you're at it, help others in the comments. Someone may need guidance in an area where you have experience. Let's create a space for real growth, not just content consumption. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Man Who Knew Everything But Did Nothing. The year is 950, during Japan's Heian period. Tadayoshi is 24 years old and has already read more books than men twice his age. Born into a noble family, he has access to resources most can only dream of: Chinese military classics, Buddhist texts, Sun Tzu's strategic writings, and Confucian philosophy. Meanwhile, other young nobles waste time at parties, writing poetry about cherry blossoms and drinking sake. Tadayoshi studies. He studies military strategy, battle formations, combat tactics, and the psychology of warfare. He dreams of becoming a great warrior, perhaps even a general who will shape the fate of Japan. His mind is sharp, his memory exceptional. He can quote ancient texts verbatim and debate military theory with scholars decades older. Yet Tadayoshi faces a devastating problem, one that slowly crushes his spirit. He cannot act. Every morning he wakes with grand plans. Today will be the day. Today I will pick up my sword and train until my hands bleed. Today I will push my body to its limits. Today I will stop pretending to be a warrior and finally become one. But something always intervenes. He notices a new scroll on his shelf, a text on a technique he hasn't fully mastered. His mind whispers, "How can I train without fully understanding the theory? What if I practice incorrectly? Shouldn't I study one more thing first?" So he reads, studies, takes notes, memorizes, and by the time he feels ready to act, the sun has set. The day is gone. Tomorrow, he promises himself, tomorrow I will start. The household servants whisper. The other nobles laugh behind his back. Tadayoshi, the warrior of books, they mock him. He can kill with knowledge, but never with a sword. The truth is harsher than any blade. He has enough technical knowledge to train an entire army. Yet he has never felt the burn of exhausted muscles, never confronted the mental wall separating the mediocre from the excellent, never endured the real discomfort that turns theory into skill. One evening, his father, a stern man and military advisor to a provincial lord, says words that will haunt Tadayoshi forever. You have the mind of a general but the heart of a scribe. All that knowledge without action is worthless. You are not a man. You are a ghost pretending to be alive. That night, Tadayoshi does not sleep. His father's words echo like thunder. He knows they are true. Years of study, countless books, immense knowledge. Yet he remains the same, weak, hesitant, trapped inside his own mind, paralyzed by overthinking. But the next morning, something changes. For the first time in years, Tadayoshi does not open a book. He walks out the door. Chapter 2. The Meeting in the Forest. He wanders aimlessly through the forest near his family estate. The morning air is cold and biting. The sun has barely risen. He doesn't know what he's searching for. Maybe clarity. Maybe permission to return to his comfortable life of books. Maybe he just needs a walk to clear his thoughts. That's when he hears it. A steady, repetitive sound. Metal slicing through air. Wood striking wood. Consistent, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. He follows the sound to a small clearing and stops. A man, likely around 50, stands there. His hair is graying and tied in a simple knot. His body carries old scars, thin white marks along his arms, a jagged one across his shoulder. He moves with a wooden sword, repeating the same sequence again and again. The same cut, the same stance, the same breath hundreds of times. Tadayoshi watches in silence. The man shows no emotion, no sign of struggle or satisfaction. Just steady, continuous movement. This is discipline, Tadayoshi realizes. Not excitement, not motivation, just presence and action. When the man finally stops, Tadayoshi approaches with hesitation. Master, he says instinctively, I've watched you train. Your discipline is unlike anything I've seen. Please teach me. The man looks him over slowly. His fine silk clothes, soft hands without calluses, the posture of someone untouched by physical labor. No, he replies simply, turning away. Wait. Tadayoshi's voice cracks with desperation. I've studied every technique. I know Sun Tzu's art of war by heart. I understand formations, strategies, the writings of great Chinese generals. I learn quickly, I promise. The man stops and turns back slightly. His tone is almost amused. You know techniques. Good. Go use them. He starts walking again. Something inside Tadayoshi breaks. His pride, his identity as an educated noble, all of it crumbles. Please, he shouts. I need to change. I need to become more than I am. The man stops again. This time he stays silent for a long moment. Finally, without turning around, he says, You're going to give up. I won't. Tadayoshi replies immediately. Everyone gives up. I won't. The man turns and studies Tadayoshi's face. He sees desperation, but desperation is just another emotion, and emotions pass. Still, perhaps this young noble must learn that for himself. Tomorrow, the man says at last, before sunrise, Here, if you show up, I'll consider teaching you. If you don't, never return. Tadayoshi nods quickly. I'll be here, I promise. The man almost laughs. Promises, he mutters, as if the word means nothing. Chapter 3. The First Test. Tadayoshi doesn't sleep that night. Each time he closes his eyes, he sees the man's expression and hears his words. You're going to give up. He can't give up, not this time. He refuses to remain the warrior of books. He arrives at the clearing an hour before dawn. It is freezing and dark. He waits, shivering, watching for the first light to touch the trees. The man appears so quietly it's as if he materialized from the shadows. One moment the clearing is empty, and the next he is standing there. He looks at Tadayoshi with an unreadable expression, somewhere between surprise and disappointment. "You came," the man says. "It is not a compliment. I said I would." "Words," the man murmurs. "Today I'll see if you have anything beyond words." What follows is harsh. The man, who now introduces himself as Keo, begins with something deceptively simple. A basic fighting stance. Knees bent, back straight, arms extended, holding a wooden sword parallel to the ground. This position, Keo explains, is the foundation of everything. "How long do I hold it?" Tadayoshi asks. "Until I tell you to stop." 2 minutes later, Tadayoshi's legs shake. 5 minutes later, he's drenched in sweat. 10 minutes later, every part of his body is begging him to move, straighten, or stop. "Master, I don't think I can." Silence. Keo's voice cuts sharply through the cold air. He sits on a rock, watching with the same calm expression. "Your mind is telling you to stop. It lies. Your body can do far more than your mind allows." At 15 minutes, tears form in Tadayoshi's eyes. Not from sadness, but from intense physical pain. Every muscle burns. I can't." "Stop," Keo says suddenly. Tadayoshi collapses, gasping as if he has run a great distance. His legs continue trembling uncontrollably. He looks up at Keo, hoping for encouragement or at least understanding. What he finds is disappointment. 15 minutes? Keo says. "And you're already ready to quit? Do you think battles last 15 minutes? Do you think an enemy waits until you feel comfortable?" Tadayoshi lowers his head, overwhelmed with shame. "Go home," Keo says, standing. "You don't have what it takes." Something inside Tadayoshi shatters. But from that breaking, something new emerges. Harder. "No," he says, forcing himself to stand on shaking legs. "I'll do it again." Keo studies him with renewed interest. "You think motivation will save you? This anger you feel now will fade. Tomorrow morning, you'll be sore, exhausted, and you won't want to return. I'll come back." "Why?" Keo asks, not rhetorically. Tadayoshi opens his mouth, then closes it. Why would he return? Because he wants to be a warrior, that's just a feeling. Because he's ashamed, that too is a feeling. And Keo is right. Feelings pass. "You don't know," Keo observes. "And because you don't know, you won't last." He begins walking away. "Wait," Tadayoshi shouts. "Then tell me why I should come back." Keo stops and turns slowly. "Because it is your duty." "Duty?" Tadayoshi repeats, confused. "Duty to whom?" "To yourself. To the man you promised to become. Listen carefully. Motivation is a feeling. Duty is an order. Feelings change with the wind. Duty remains even in the storm." Keo steps forward, then pauses. "We Japanese have a word for this, Yamato Damashii. The Japanese spirit. It's not about feeling like doing something. It's about doing it because it defines who you are." Chapter 4. The second day, the first real lesson. Tadayoshi returns the next day, not because he wants to. His entire body aches. His legs barely support him, every muscle protests. But he remembers Keo's words. Duty remains even in the storm. Keo waits. His expression is different now, not exactly approval but recognition. "You're back," he says. "I said I'd be back. Yesterday you said it with emotion. Today you say it with weariness. Which is truer?" Tadayoshi thinks. "Today." "Exactly. Yesterday you were motivated. Today you are fulfilling your duty. One fades, the other remains." Keo instructs him to assume the same stance as yesterday. But before beginning, he explains, Yamato Damashii isn't something you feel. It's something you do until you become it. As Tadayoshi holds the stance, legs trembling, Keo asks, "What did you study?" "Battle strategies." Tadayoshi replies through gritted teeth. Tactics, formations, the classics. That made me a warrior. No. Why not? KO presses. Tadayoshi doesn't answer immediately, focused on the burning pain. Because I didn't act, he finally admits. Partially correct, KO says. The knowledge in Chinese texts is valuable. The classics teach strategy, wisdom. But there's an old saying, knowledge is of little use without Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi's legs shake violently. It means you can know how to win every battle, but without the spirit to show up, that knowledge is worthless. Yamato Damashii turns knowledge into action. It keeps you moving when every part of you wants to stop. His legs give way and he falls 20 minutes this time, 5 longer than yesterday. KO nods. Progress. Not because your body is stronger, you're weaker, but because you've learned pain isn't the enemy. Hesitation is. Chapter 5. The Lesson of the River. On the third day, Tadayoshi arrives at dawn. KO is waiting, but they leave the clearing. Today, KO says, you'll learn the difference between doing something because you want to and doing it because you must. Follow me. They walk to a nearby river. The water moves fast and cold, harsh and unforgiving. KO points to a rock in the middle of the river. You will stand there in your stance until I tell you to leave. Tadayoshi looks at the icy water. For how long? Until you understand. He steps into the river. The water feels like knives against his skin. He jumps onto the rock, slips, almost falls but regains balance. He assumes the stance. Cold water splashes against his legs. 5 minutes in, he shakes uncontrollably. 10 minutes, he loses feeling in his feet. 15 minutes, panic creeps in. Master, I can't take this. Your ancestors endured worse. KO shouts from the shore. They stood on battlefields for days, marched with open wounds, fought to their last breath. And you can't handle cold water? Why? Tadayoshi demands. Why must I do this? Because it is your duty. KO's voice echoes. You asked me to teach you. You promised to become a warrior. That is not a request. It is a declaration. Declarations demand duty. Tadayoshi closes his eyes. Tears stream down his face, mixing with river spray. He thinks about stepping off, returning to his comfortable life of books. But then he remembers his father. You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe. He recalls the laughter of other nobles, the warrior of books. Years of study, planning, and knowledge without action. He is not that man anymore. The cold and pain remain, but he stops fighting them. He accepts them. I am here because I choose to be. I stay because I must. Time becomes meaningless. Finally, KO shouts, "Get out!" Tadayoshi jumps from the rock, legs barely responding. KO helps him to shore and leads him to a fire. 45 minutes, KO says. Tadayoshi stares in disbelief. Felt like hours. Do you know what happened? KO asks. For the first 15 minutes, you fought the discomfort. It exhausted you. Then something changed. You stopped fighting. You accepted the cold as your duty. And paradoxically, it became easier, not because the pain lessened, but because you stopped adding mental suffering to physical pain. KO adds fuel to the lesson. This is Yamato Damashii. It is not about not feeling. It is about not letting feelings dictate your actions. Did you feel cold? Yes. Did you want to leave? Yes. But you stayed because duty does not negotiate with discomfort. Chapter 6. The Origin Story. That evening, KO allows Tadayoshi to rest early. But first, they sit by the river, listening to the rushing water. Do you know why I'm teaching you about Yamato Damashii? KO asks. Tadayoshi shakes his head. Because you are exactly the type of man this concept was created to save. KO looks up at the stars. Centuries ago, our elite became obsessed with Chinese culture, and rightfully so. The Chinese had incredible knowledge. Philosophy, strategy, art, poetry. Our nobles studied these classics intensely. They became brilliant scholars. But many became like you once were, knowing everything yet doing nothing. Knowledge without soul. Theory without practice. That's when our ancestors realized something crucial. They needed a way to distinguish men who merely knew things from men who actually acted. It wasn't enough to master Chinese knowledge. You needed Yamato Damashii, the native spirit, the force that makes you act even when you don't want to. Ko continues, this wasn't about being anti-Chinese or anti-foreign. It was about recognizing that knowledge is a tool, but spirit is the craftsman. You can have the best sword in the world, but without the courage to wield it, it's just decorative metal. The truth our ancestors discovered is this practical wisdom, making decisions under pressure, solving real problems, acting when action is necessary, doesn't come from books alone. It comes from doing, from showing up, from fulfilling your duty when every part of you wants to run. Yamato Damashii was the difference between the scholar who debates war and the warrior who fights in it. Between the poet who writes about courage and the man who acts with it. Between who you were 3 days ago and who you are becoming now. Chapter 7. The Great Temptation. Week 2. Tadayoshi has made real progress. He can hold stances longer. His muscles respond better. His mind is quieter. Then comes the real test, the full moon festival. Nobles will gather. Music, poetry, sake, celebration. Tadayoshi receives an invitation. The night before, he can hardly sleep. Not from excitement, but from conflict. He's trained 7 days straight. One night off wouldn't hurt, would it? He deserves rest, some fun, some normalcy. The next morning, Tadayoshi doesn't appear at the clearing. Ko waits, watching the sun rise fully. Tadayoshi doesn't come. He is at home, recovering from a night of drinking and socializing. When he finally wakes, guilt hits immediately, crushing. After only a week, he has already broken his promises. The next day, he goes to the clearing, expecting it to be empty. Surely Ko has given up, but Ko is waiting. His face shows something worse than anger. Sadness. You missed yesterday, Ko says quietly. The festival. Silence. Not angry, just weary. You don't owe me an explanation. You owe yourself one. And you failed. Tears well up in Tadayoshi's eyes. I'm sorry. Please let me continue. It was a mistake. Ko corrects him. It was a choice. You chose comfort over duty, pleasure over promise. And you know what that proves? You still don't understand Yamato Damashii. You still think it's about doing things when convenient. Ko starts to walk away. Wait, Tadayoshi begs. Give me one more chance. I understand now. I really understand. Do you? Ko turns. Then explain to me. What is Yamato Damashii? Tadayoshi breathes deeply. It's doing things even when you don't want to. Partially correct. Continue. It's duty over feeling. That's a consequence, not the essence. Deeper. Tadayoshi closes his eyes, recalling the cold river and burning stances. Then it clicks. It's who you are, not just what you do. It's identity. Yesterday, when I broke my commitment, I wasn't breaking a habit. I was betraying who I declared myself to be. Ko is silent for a long moment, then nods slowly. Now you're beginning to understand. He makes Tadayoshi hold the stance for 2 hours straight. No mercy, no breaks. When Tadayoshi finally collapses, trembling and crying, Ko says, "This pain, you chose yesterday. When you break your duty, you don't escape consequences. You only postpone them, and they return worse." Chapter 8. Identity, not action. The next day, Ko teaches differently. Instead of physical training, Tadayoshi sits. Do you think discipline is about doing difficult things? Ko asks. Yes. No. Tadayoshi replies uncertainly. Discipline is about being someone for whom these things are non-negotiable. There's a huge difference between I should train and I am someone who trains. One is desire. The other is identity. Ko draws in the dirt. When you say, I want to be a warrior, you create distance between who you are and who you want to be. This distance allows negotiation. I want to, but not today. I want to, but I'm tired. I want to, but it's the festival. But when you say, I am a warrior, There is no distance, no negotiation. Warriors train not because they want to, but because it's what warriors do. It's identity, not choice. Something clicks in Tadayoshi's mind. So Yamato Damashii isn't about forcing action? Exactly. For the first time in weeks, Keo smiles. Yamato Damashii is about embodying an identity so completely that action flows naturally. You stop asking, should I? And simply do because it is impossible not to. It is who you are. Think of the great warriors of the past. Keo continues, they didn't wake up every day asking whether to train. That question didn't exist. They were warriors. Warriors train. Simple as that. The problem with your book knowledge wasn't the knowledge itself. It was that you identified as a scholar who wanted to be a warrior, not as a warrior who studies. See the difference? For the first time, Tadayoshi sees it clearly. In the coming months, Keo says, I will teach you how to change your identity. Not through thinking, but through repetition, so consistent that your body and mind have no choice but to accept you are no longer who you were. Chapter 9. The Transformation. The following months are brutal. Yet something fundamental shifts in Tadayoshi. He stops negotiating with himself. Keo teaches a simple principle. Decide once. Act 1,000 times. Tadayoshi decides who he is, not who he wants to be. Then he lives as that person. No questions. No negotiations. 90 days. Every single day before sunrise. No exceptions. No, just not today. No, I'm too tired. The question, am I going to train today? Simply stops existing. Of course you will. Warriors train. You are a warrior. By week 6, Tadayoshi begins waking before his alarm. His body automatically prepares. By week 8, he realizes he no longer thinks about training, he simply shows up. Keo watches with satisfaction. See? Your brain finally accepted it. You're not forcing yourself anymore. It's flowing naturally. The real transformation occurs on day 63. Tadayoshi wakes sick, fever, body aching, mind foggy. The old voice whispers, you must rest today. He gets up anyway, staggering to the clearing. Keo notices immediately. You're sick, Keo observes. I am, Tadayoshi admits. Why did you come? Because that's who I am, he replies without hesitation. Keo smiles. Not a small smile, but a broad one of genuine pride. Now you understand. Yamato Damashii isn't about strength. It's about being unshakable, not in power, but in identity. Go home. Rest today. You've proven your point. You didn't come to prove yourself to me. You came because you can't help but come. You've changed. Chapter 10. The final lesson, day 90. 3 months of non-stop training. Tadayoshi is no longer the same man. His body has transformed. Muscles where there was softness, calluses where there was delicate skin, but the real change is invisible. Keo sits him down one final time. You've completed your training period. Now I'll tell you the truth. You needed to discover yourself. Yamato Damashii was never about training. It was about death and rebirth. The Tadayoshi who arrived here 3 months ago, the man who knew everything and did nothing, he died. Every day when you chose duty over comfort, you killed the old self and were reborn anew. The books weren't wrong, Keo continues. Your knowledge is valuable. But knowledge without soul is a corpse, beautiful perhaps, but dead. Yamato Damashii is the soul that animates knowledge. It turns information into wisdom, theory into practice, intention into reality. Keo stands and leads Tadayoshi to an open field. 20 armed men wait. Soldiers. Real warriors. These men need an instructor, Keo explains. Someone who understands strategy, but has also proven they can execute. Someone with Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi looks from the men to Keo. You're recommending me? No, Keo says. I'm handing you your duty. You spent 3 months learning to be a warrior. Now you will teach others, not through books, though they are useful, but through example, through identity, through Yamato Damashii. Chapter 11, 5 years later. 5 years pass. Tadayoshi, now 29, has become exactly what he dreamed. Not just a warrior, but a general. A leader men follow not from fear, but respect. He commands 300 soldiers, has won 3 significant battles, but more importantly, he teaches what Ko taught him, Yamato Damashii. His soldiers aren't the strongest, nor do they have the best equipment. But they have something enemy armies do not. They do not negotiate. When orders come, they execute without hesitation, without internal questioning, not blindly, but because identity dictates action. One day, a young recruit approaches. Intelligent, studious, but weak. Tadayoshi sees himself. "General," the young man says, "I've read all the manuals. I know all the techniques. But in training, I freeze. I know what to do, but I can't do it." "Why?" Tadayoshi smiles, waiting for this moment for years. "Because you have knowledge without soul. Knowledge tells you what to do. Yamato Damashii makes you do it. Come with me tomorrow before sunrise. I'll teach you what no book can teach." And the next day, in the forest clearing, the cycle begins again. Chapter 12. Distortion and Return. Tadayoshi lives to the age of 67. He witnesses much change in Japan but never forgets Ko's teachings. He never stops living by Yamato Damashii. Yet the story doesn't end with men like them. Centuries later, approaching World War II, the concept is hijacked. Militaristic governments take Yamato Damashii, a beautiful principle of completing knowledge with action, and twist it into something dark. They claim it means dying for the emperor, turning it into blind nationalism. Soldiers fight to death, not out of personal duty, but out of fanatical obedience. This wasn't Yamato Damashii. It was propaganda wearing a sacred name. The real Yamato Damashii, as Ko taught, had nothing to do with national superiority. It was about personal excellence. Not being better than others, but being better than your past self. About the internal battle, killing the version of yourself that negotiates, postpones, knows but doesn't act, and being reborn as someone who executes, not from feeling, but from identity. Today, the term carries scars from that dark era. Many avoid using it, but the essence never died. It lives every time someone chooses duty over feeling, shows up when they don't want to, or turns knowledge into action, theory into practice, intention into reality. Chapter 13. Applying Yamato Damashii. Today, you don't need to be a samurai to embody Yamato Damashii. You don't even need to be Japanese. At its core, this isn't about culture, it's a universal human truth. Here's the truth. Motivation is a lie. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings change like the wind. Monday, you're motivated. Wednesday, you're tired. Friday, you give up. Sunday, you promise to start again. This cycle destroys dreams, potential, and the person you could become. Yamato Damashii is the solution. Here's how it works. First, stop making promises about what you'll do. Make declarations about who you are. Don't say, "I'm going to the gym." Say, "I'm someone who trains." Don't say, "I should read more." Say, "I'm someone who reads daily." The change seems small, but it transforms everything. Second, understand that duty is non-negotiable. When you declare, "I am someone who does X," you're not creating a goal, you're shaping your identity. Identity doesn't take days off. You don't get a day off from being yourself. Third, accept that transformation requires pain. Breaking comfort patterns hurts. Forming good habits and abandoning bad ones hurts. Pain is like medicine, bitter at first, but it heals. Fourth, knowledge without action is meaningless. You can study training for years and remain weak. Learn about business and stay broke. Study relationships and stay alone. Why? Because you have knowledge, but not Yamato Damashii, the spirit to execute. Knowledge shows the path. Yamato Damashii makes you walk it. Fifth, consistency outweighs intensity. Tadayoshi didn't become a warrior in a single day of extreme training. He became one after 90 days of showing up consistently, sick, tired, or unwilling. Transformation doesn't come from heroic effort. It comes from thousands of small acts of fulfilled duty. Don't focus on impossible tasks. Instead of cramming 16 hours in one day, commit to 3 hours every day. Don't count hours, count days of persistent action. Chapter 14. The Final Secret. There's one last lesson KO taught Tadayoshi on the final day, something that redefines discipline entirely. After 90 days, KO said something seemingly contradictory. Now that you've learned Yamato Damashii, I'll teach you when to break it. Tadayoshi was confused. Break it? But you said duty is non-negotiable. KO explained, there's a difference between breaking from weakness and adjusting from wisdom. Yamato Damashii isn't about self-punishment. It's not about destroying your body or mind for the sake of blind consistency. It's about serving your greater purpose, not rigidly following rules. If you are truly sick, not lazy, resting isn't breaking Yamato Damashii. It's honoring it. You rest to serve better tomorrow, not to avoid today. See the difference? Tadayoshi understood. Discipline, KO said, is about intention. Warriors rest strategically to fight harder, not to escape. If you want, I can now compile the entire 14-chapter story into a polished, ready-to-record YouTube script with smooth narration flow, transitions, and motivational emphasis, keeping it suitable for a 40 to 50-minute video. Do you want me to do that next? Cowards rest emotionally to avoid the fight. Same action, different intention. The test is simple. Ask yourself, why am I stopping today? If the answer is, because I don't want to, because it's too hard, or because I deserve a break, that's negotiation. Kill that thought. Execute. But if the answer is, my body needs recovery to perform better tomorrow, that's not negotiation, it's strategy. Yamato Damashii without wisdom is fanaticism, KO said. Yamato Damashii with wisdom is mastery. Never confuse the two. This was the final and most important lesson, because the goal of Yamato Damashii was never to create robots who blindly obey. Its purpose was to create warriors who act with intention, who understand that discipline serves something greater. Duty is not a prison. It is the freedom to decide once and live 1,000 times without the burden of constant choices. The truth is available to you now. Tadayoshi's story ends, but the truth he discovered does not. You don't need more motivation. Motivation is fuel that runs out. You need Yamato Damashii. You need an identity so strong that action is not a choice, it is inevitable. You need to understand that all your knowledge, courses, books, videos, strategies, is meaningless without the spirit to execute. Knowledge without Yamato Damashii is empty. Accept this. The person you are now, the one who knows but doesn't act, who plans but doesn't execute, who promises but doesn't deliver, must cease to exist. And you are the one who defeats that version of yourself every single day, by fulfilling your duty, taking action when you don't want to, and being consistent even when it's inconvenient. In that person's place, something new is born. Someone unwavering, someone who doesn't negotiate, someone people look at and wonder, how does he do it? The answer is simple, he doesn't do it. He is it. This is Yamato Damashii. It's not a Japanese technique. It's human truth. It is the difference between dreaming and living, between wanting and being, between dead knowledge and living wisdom. When you understand this, not intellectually but deeply, you'll realize you'll never need motivation again. Because you won't be doing things, you will be being someone. And this person cannot help but act. If this video has shifted your perspective on discipline and action, I want to invite you to subscribe to Presence and Purpose. We're building a community of people done with empty motivation and ready for real transformation. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and don't miss future content that continues this journey. And comment below right now. Tell me honestly, what's the one action you've been putting off? What do you know you need to do but keep postponing? Share it. While you're there, help someone else who commented. Maybe they need advice in an area where you have experience. Let's create a real community of people helping each other grow. Remember, knowledge without Yamato Damashii is dead information, taking up space in your head. Knowledge with Yamato Damashii is the power to transform your life. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Every day you delay, the old you grows stronger. One day it will win unless you defeat it today. If you've watched this far, thank you. You've already proven you have something most people don't. Now use it. Take action. Be present. Walk with honor. Follow the path. See you in the next one.